We're at the compound. We were going to do an outdoor class today, but the drizzle has begun. So we're gonna head on in here, hit up our decontamination station first. Oh man, look at this. No one's here. We have an empty mat. Oh, there they are, Pal and Dutch. Me too. Say what's up, Dutch. There's Pal.
Hey.
He's the owner and operator of the compound Silver Spring.
All right, Dutch. Hey, buddy, I need you to get all this stuff. Please. Oh, we're on. Oh, let me get Zoom going.
Oh, that's not the lineup that I like. It's centered, right?
All right. Yeah, Grayson's hanging out front. Hello, Sundar Land. And hello, Facebook. Facebook. Oh my gosh, Dutch, what do you want? Okay, gosh, boy. I gotta stop teaching him jiu-jitsu. He's gonna beat me up when he gets older.
Imagine him in 4 years.
Dude, Dutch, if you stick with it real good, buddy, maybe you'll be the next Rotulo twin. Huh? They're freaking amazing, dude.
Hey, are you guys about to film?
Oh, if anybody wants to know how to tie a jiu-jitsu belt the way that I do it, okay, there's a couple different ways. You can fold it in half like most people do, or the way I do it is I put the side without the bar, okay, right on my hip. I run around, then around again. So I have this tail, okay? This tail, I just push under, okay? This. Top tail goes up, here, flip around, and then when I do class and I roll and stuff, I typically put these both in, or at least one of them in, so that the belt has a little bit more surface area to catch onto, and it doesn't slip out as easily, especially when you're getting smashed on by everybody. So
Technical. Highly technical. I just tie mine like a big bow, like it's on top of a present, so I can give you the gift of jiu-jitsu. So the concept today is connection, disconnection, attachment, detachment. I know the second parsing of that phrase is a little zen, and maybe that's the point, because after all, there is an emotional component to fighting. There's a mental and psychological preparation component to fighting, which is critical for people who are competitive, critical for people who are moving through the amateur ranks, moving into a semi-professional career or a professional career as a jiu-jitsu teacher, as a jiu-jitsu competitor, as an MMA fighter. We know that training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and submission grappling is critical to the success of contemporary fighters. So if you're someone who aspires in that direction, the second part of this title, the attachment-detachment, will actually be critical for you. Mentally, if in the fight you allow the stress of the conflict to overwhelm you, and you exhibit that or you somatize that through your physical actions by using additional strength and energy, you will end up on the losing end of your contest more often than not. Smart fighters are the best fighters. It is important to be in shape. It is important to have a high level of technical skill. It is important to take your camp and your training seriously. but your mental game at the highest echelons is all that matters. So our argument at the compound, we shouldn't even say our argument because we're not fighting with people about this. Our mission at the compound as a human optimization service, which we choose to do through the medium of martial arts, is to start you training your mental game as early as possible. And part of that is being attached to what's appropriate and then being willing to detach, right? One example of this is what people constitute as a classic grip battle from the feet. So if Pao and I were to be standing and facing one another, and then we start...
Figure this part out real quick.
Do we have anyone on Zoom yet?
Not yet.
Okay. If Pao and I are standing and facing one another and we start gripping, and he'll match my grip, and I'll match his grip, and he'll match my grip. And now because we've evenly matched the collar grips and the sleeve grips, we've essentially neutralized ourselves again. You can say, well, you're not stalling, you're acting, you're moving forward, you're progressing the fight. But unless I have an advantage numerically here, where I've got more connection than he does, every single time he matches my grip, we zero ourselves out and we reset to neutral. So this is why the guys who are skilled in judo, like my friend Grayson is standing over on the side of the mat, he's a judo black belt, and when he teaches us judo, he puts a lot of emphasis on the grip battle, and winning that grip battle is the beginning of the entry, it's the beginning of the takedown, it's the beginning of everything. And thinking about that grip battle is just as important as physically activating that grip battle. So you have to be smart about how you're activating the grip battle. For example, right now, I'm holding Pao's collar and I'm holding Pao's sleeve, and he's doing the same to me. But if the contest neutralizes itself here because we've evened the odds, we're now stuck in a zero-sum game where both of us are struggling as hard as we can to pull the collars or open the sleeves, and every time each of us does that, that also negates the effect of the neutral matching of grips that we've already positioned ourselves into. So at some point, you may need to, for example, detach from this. Even though I feel scared to let go of the security that I believe I've bought myself by purchasing a collar grip and purchasing a sleeve grip, the moment Pao hangs on to both, he neutralizes that and we're back at ground zero. If we stay like this, every single time I try to get close, he stiffens his arms and doesn't let me in, so stiff arm, right? He might even back up a little bit. And every time I try to walk away, he bends a little bit and pulls me close. And I'm doing the same thing to him. This is a lose-lose proposition or a zero-sum game where no one actually gains an advantage. So one concept here then is to, instead of being stuck in the attachment, instead of being overly connected, I want to detach or disconnect. One thing I can do, and I think we should turn this way actually, for this particular execution. One thing I can do is think about what's closer to the head, the collar or the sleeve. The collar. And the head leads the body. So whatever I can make Pao's head do, the rest of the body tends to follow. If I try to pull Pao's arm very hard, he can simply use his core to straighten himself back up. But if I pull Pao's head and I get his shoulders tipping in front of his hips, now I've bent the body in half in a much more major way than if I simply tilt him off to the side. So the question is, do I have enough power in my arm to go against Pao's entire core and bend his head forward at the waist? Probably not. But do I have enough weight in my body that if I suddenly drop all of my 221.2 pounds, we weighed ourselves yesterday, it was not pretty. We've got the quarantine 15, as Alessandro likes to tell us. If I drop all of my body weight onto this collar alone, what are the chances that his head will dip? Pretty high. Now, in order to do that, I need to let go of the sleeve. If I hang on to the sleeve and then try to put my weight through the collar, I miss the opportunity to commit all my weight to the collar. If I stay straight, I miss the opportunity to commit all my weight to the collar. So what we'll do is this. We'll hang onto the collar, because that's our connection. Pao's matching my connection, he's neutralized me, and I'll disconnect, I'll detach intentionally, which is a mental decision, right? It's a thoughtful decision, because I see that I'm burning energy and no progress is being made. I'll detach and drop to both knees away from the collar. And the reason is because he's got my sleeve covered right here. If I try to drop to my knees and use my weight to bend his head in the direction where he's already blocking me, you see how hard he's blocking me? Right? The mid-range of my body is being blocked, so it's hard for me to move through that. He just tucks the sleeve and I'm going. However, when I drop straight down and a little bit away from the collar, away from this blockade, it's harder for him to hold onto my collar. And if he does hold onto my collar, watch what happens. He has to bend to hold onto my collar. Right? He has to bend to hold onto my collar. Either way, I've accomplished the goal. I get him to bend. So here, we're holding on very tight, and that's not good. So I'm going to abandon the grip on the sleeve. I'm going to detach or disconnect from the sleeve and walk away from the hand and the collar and drop to both knees. There. You see how his hand is almost touching the ground. We made his base so compromised that he had to catch the ground. And here comes my second detachment. Here comes my second detachment. At this point, the collar does me no good. Because if he stands up and I keep the collar, I just go with him, and now I'm on my knees and he's on his feet, and what good is this? I don't care so much now about the collar. What I care about is that I've changed my level. Right? Just like in wrestling, if we're facing each other and I touch heads a little bit and then I change my level, the purpose of the level change is to say, I'm not fighting you on the second floor, I'm fighting you on the first, or from the basement, right? We have the basement at ankle level, the first floor at the waist, and the second floor at the chest and shoulders. So this is a level change, but I do it while holding onto the knee to get the guy to bend in half. Here's my connections, we're frozen, and I abandon my grip on the sleeve so that I can move into that open space, and holding the collar, let all my weight flow through the collar and drop his head to the ground. Now, because he's been compromised, he wants to stand back up, and when he does, it exposes the legs. Take a look at the grip on the feet. When Pal is standing, I just put my hands where they would go naturally. The hand that's closest to this foot catches the foot. It doesn't grab the pants. It doesn't grab the pants. If this is his ankle, I cup the ankle. I cup the ankle. The second hand can much more easily reach across the front and cup the ankle. So I've got two monkey grips with no thumbs surrounding his ankles. And then my shoulder, let's turn a little bit this way, right? My shoulder touches the outside of the leg. Now watch what happens. If I throw the weight of my body into, Dan Miller wants to be admitted. It's a nice thumb, man. Look at that thumb. If I throw the weight of my body into Pal's leg, watch him take the step that he needs to recover. There. He took a little step, right? That little step is how he keeps his balance. What if I just put something in front of his foot so that when he takes that step, he can't? Here's something in front of one foot that keeps him from taking the salvation step. Here's something in front of the other foot that keeps him from taking the saving step. Now when I touch the weight of my body to his leg and he can't take the step, the energy gets transferred somewhere else. Where does it go? It goes right up the top of the body and he has to fall. The only way he can stay on his feet is to take the step, right? So what I've done here is move through a series of beginning at a highly attached phase. I purposely detached to move myself to a new position, and then I reattached so that I can execute a blockade on what his natural response would be to falling over, right? This mentality is very helpful, as opposed to the mentality that I'm going to stand up against a guy who's stronger than me. Pal's way stronger, right? Because he actually works out. As opposed to someone who's way stronger than me, and we're just going to do this and push and pull and fight. He's going to win that battle every time. So instead of fighting in his world, I'm going to disappear from his world and go where he least expects. When I go down, he expects me to stay in front, so I'm going to go to the side. When I go down, he expects to stand up. And he can do that because the more he stands up, the more he exposes his legs. Here's the attachment, and we're stuck. Here's the detachment from the sleeve, and I walk away from the collar, keeping a grip, and I don't pull. If I pull, he stops it. But if I drop the weight through the collar, around the corner, directly to my knees, all of my 221 pounds versus his head, even if it dips for only a moment, is the reaction I'm trying to create. Boom. Now when he stands up, he exposes the leg. So I attach to one ankle with a cupped hand. I attach to the second ankle with a cupped hand, and I bang my shoulder against his leg, not with power, but with weight. I drive. Right? I'm up on my toes here. My final position when I land should be like this. 1, 2, and I drive. Like I'm in plank position, or what we call leaning rest, right? Make sense? I know it does. Okay, here's another concept that you can use to activate a detachment, attachment, or connection, disconnection principle or protocol. Number 2 on the list that we made earlier was a discussion of the baseball choke, which was also a request that someone had. So here Powell will spin with his head toward the camera, like the crown of his head toward the camera, and here when I'm in the top side mount position, I may use the collars to hold on and keep my balance. One of the best lessons I ever got in the entire time that I've been training jiu-jitsu was from Saulo Ribeiro, a great champion. You should look him up. He's one of the great champions to come out of the Humaita lineage. He still teaches and is active to this day. He's the person who created and runs University of Jiu-Jitsu in San Diego. And Saulo said to me, if you are grabbing or gripping to keep your balance, it's a compensation for a weakness. It's a compensation for a weakness. And he said, you don't need to grab. You don't need to hold. The only time you need to hold is when you're going to choke or move a person a bit. But if you're holding on to keep your balance from the top, it's a compensation for a weakness. He said, what you need to do is improve your balance from the top, improve your weight distribution, improve the focus of your weight into one area, and then just touch, right? So a classic side mount position, once we've established and moved through the pin procedures, which we talked about in last week's class, you can watch that, it's called Concepts, top side mount, is we go into the knee on belly position, right? And knee on belly sometimes happens because the person puts a wall up and they think that that wall is gonna block the knee on belly. And the way around this is to put my hip on their hip, and then instead of trying to put my knee in straight, which they can block, I slide backwards up the outside of their thigh and land in the knee. So I do almost like a little shrimp here, a scoot. I scoot back, and then I roll my knee under, right? And now the temptation is to grab the collar and like hold on like he's a bucking bronco. But instead what I should do is touch the chest, maybe even touch the bicep, and then take my foot off the ground and start to spin back a little bit so he can't touch my leg, right? All of these things now are very heavily and firmly connected to him without the requirement of a grip. And when I first learned to do the knee on belly, this classic approach to knee on belly involved us putting our thumb in the collar with the knuckles on the ground, and then we'd make a similar grip on the belt on the opposite side. And we would start kneeling, and then we'd do like this push-up, and we'd float our knees and fly through the air, and then come crashing down into the knee on belly, right? So we'd go here, wah, boom, and we'd land. And you can see how all of the space that I create is problematic for me because it's very easy for him to fill. As soon as I jump up, all he has to do is connect the knee and elbow, and it's done. Or he can even just wait with his hands in his stomach and catch the knee, and then shrimp away, holding the knee still to remove it. So the problem is actually not that I'm floating to the knee on belly. The problem is that I gripped first. I overly attached when I didn't need to. And again, that's part of the mental desire that we have when we're dealing with stress in the form of conflict, in the form of a fight, or even just rolling the academy, right? It's not stressful in a negative way. We know how incredibly positive the stressors or the stimulus that we get from jiu-jitsu is. It's very, very positive, but still, it's a form of conflict. It's a form of conflict resolution using two bodies as an example. And here we have this premise where because we've begun overly attached and because all of the mental energy or ego that we have that gets in the way of good rolling comes out in the form of physicality, that's called somatization, when a psychological component materializes physically, then we do things like use all of our strength and energy. This is what's actually going on behind the scenes when you have your elevated and good and knowledgeable and experienced jiu-jitsu coaches telling you it's not about strength, it's not about power, it's not about energy, right? That's what they're really talking about. They're talking about your brain isn't right yet, your mind isn't right yet, you don't have the appropriate consciousness for training, and that just takes time and maturity, and jiu-jitsu can help you refine that, which is a wonderful personal quality to have as well. So here we're talking about a level of detachment where once the knee is in the belly, I'm not holding on to the collar. We're out of frame already. I think we have to move a little this way. Yeah, perfect. Yep. I'm not holding on to the collar to try to control him. I'm only going to touch the collar when I'd like to begin an attack series or I'd like to move him. And here, I don't really need to move him. I'd like to keep him where he is. Right? So one option for executing a grip that turns into a successful choke is to, here's the top by the head, the bottom is down here by the feet, here's the near side, which is the side I'm on, and there's the far side, which is the side I'm not on, right? So I take my hand that's closest to the far side, and I put it palm up in the far side collar, right? I don't put it palm down, that's a different choke. I put it palm up in the far side collar. And the best orientation is your knuckles or your thumb right along the collarbone. And you'll feel that. Even if you're super muscular like Pal, I can feel his collarbone. So here I hold the collar right at the collarbone. And now I start to walk toward the head. But before I do, I take my second hand and I put it palm down in the collar. So my palm up hand goes finger insertion, all four. My palm down hand goes thumb insertion next to the neck. And you see if I take my hands away and leave them in the same position they're in, it looks like the same grip I use to hold a baseball bat. And Pal's head is the ball. We're about to smack it out of the park. Okay, so here is an up grip in the collar and a down grip next to the throat. And the purpose is to take both hands and leaving them where they are, allow the space that they occupy to be consumed as I move my body. Right? Sometimes as I start to walk, Pal will block me with his hand. Yes. So now I can take that knee and go over the arm and slide into home plate. Another baseball analogy. All right? Here's something really useful that my friend Kenny at Second Gear Jiu-Jitsu taught me. Instead of leaving the hand too deep, because there's a tendency the more we advance for the hand to get too deep, then the choke doesn't work. Once I'm at this phase, I now draw the elbow back. You see, I draw the elbow back. And now it becomes less about how strongly I hold the collar and more about how firmly I connect to the chest. And then I just continue following or tracing the same path that I'm already in. I walk around the side and I try to put my ear on his opposite hip. Okay? So we're not even going to execute the choke in full because the position is what matters. Every individual who does this choke will have to play with the position to adjust the depth or shallowness of your hands accordingly. The point here is that if you are overly attached to the grip or the collar while you're riding the top position, the chance that, for example, me holding on very tight here causes Pal to escape is higher than if I just touch. You see, sometimes Pal might even be able to just hold my hand as if he's doing an upa escape and then go over my tricep right here. And because I'm so committed and I won't let go, he'll bridge into me and then roll away. That's it. Sorry, shrimp away. All he has to do is shrimp away and I fall right off. Right? All he has to do is shrimp away and I fall right off. Another option, sometimes if you hold the collar too strongly and you're not ready to move immediately to the choke, you're just trying to hold on, Pal will overlap, right? The elbow like this, and he'll pinch the ear and shoulder together, and now he'll bridge into me and then he'll bridge over the far shoulder. and roll away from me. So roll over your left side. We have to make it straighter. We're gonna hit the cameras. Yeah, no, just roll over. You have to just keep going, yes. Right, the hand, you see how the hand, oh, we're off camera. I'll move back. You see how my hand is stuck in the collar? Because it's stuck in the collar, because I didn't let go, I gave all my base away and ended up on the bottom. So there's an important cause for detachment. Now, how might this baseball bat choke sample look from the bottom, okay? Sometimes I'm playing the bottom guard, so I'll lay here with my head toward the camera, Pal can be inside my guard. And I'm just gonna ask him to stand right now so you can see what's happening. But this is the jacket of the kimono, and these things are called tails, right? This is also a tail in the belt. So what I'd like to do is pull out one side entirely. I'd like to pull out one side, all right? If it's already tucked in, and now Pal is kneeling inside my closed guard, sometimes I'll hold the collar with my hands forward. I don't know if that's on camera. Okay, and I can just pull it out like this. You see? And then I'll use my knees to bring him close. My feet are crossed behind him, and I'll pull my knees close to me. And as I do, I'm going to shove the collar under his arm. Boom, it's under his arm. Great. Now the goal is to place this flap here, this side, across his back entirely. I'm just going to place it across his back entirely. You see, so it's laying across the back like this. Really simple. I'm just going to pull it out, and when I pull my knees close, I'm going to punch this through. And then I'll just lay it across the back. Now, you can make a baseball bat choke shape with your hands and never even have to touch the collar. Obviously, when the person is in the guard position and I start touching the collar with my hands, the guy's going to immediately defend because there's no reason to touch the collar except to choke. Maybe a little bit of posture breaking, but ultimately he's worried about getting choked. Instead, when I open the tail of the gi, pull him close and punch this across, and then fold the flap over the back. Now look, instead of touching the collar, I'll touch the gi. This side will be palm down, and then my second hand goes right up the center, and it goes palm up. Now this doesn't necessarily feel like a threat of a choke. It feels like maybe I'm framing him. It feels like maybe I'm looking for something, but I don't know what I'm doing. Pay attention here, my hands are touching one another. The palm down thumb is touching the palm up pinky. You must have your hands close. And his head goes in that center spot. All right. Now the goal here is to get the person to move toward the palm up hand. And there's a reason for that. The palm up hand is the choking hand. If you flip your partner over and look top down from the top of the side mount, and you put your hand palm up on their opposite collar, you'll see that as you move around the corner toward their head, that arm will be slicing across, the elbow will be rotating underneath and landing in the neck. So here I've taken the gi and laid it across the back, and I secure that with a palm down grip, that means thumb in, and now I secure my second phase with a palm up grip, that means fingers in, but I make sure my fingers touch. Now in this position, we are once again neutral. However, if I shrimp away a little bit and I drop my leg low, inviting Pal to pass toward that side, look what he does. Where does he put his body? He puts his body over here, which means over there is wide open. So I'm gonna let him pass all the way, and then I'm gonna go through the opening. And that's it. It's super simple, right? I just hold the grips, and he goes that way, and watch my feet, I go this way. And then I look up, and if my partner's still awake, I smile just before they pass out. Okay, this becomes very, very tight, very, very quickly because of the rotation. As opposed to, for example, Pal's holding me in his guard now, and he does a very classic cross collar choke where he opens up one side of the collar, the palm goes in. Already I'm like, uh-oh, Pal's gonna choke me. I'm defending, right? Now he puts the second hand in. Now, yes, he can make this pretty soft because he's an experienced player, right? Pal's been training over a decade, so he knows how to do this, but in the midst of the battle,
Do you have that mental game tight enough where you can abandon your strength, where you can detach yourself, right? Chances are, in the heat of the adrenaline, you're gonna squeeze pretty hard. So now he has to squeeze really hard, and sometimes when he squeezes really hard, the rigidity in his arms open up holes. You see, this choke is supposed to be very soft. So the problem that he's getting himself into here is that the stronger he is, the less soft his arms are. When something is hard, it's straight, right? When something is soft, it's floppy. I'm gonna stop right there because I think you know what I'm saying. His arms are very rigid. His arms are very straight. And as a result of that, I can take advantage of the power. Look at all these holes he's left here. I can easily slide one hand through the center and come up between my face, and I block half the choke, and now I'm not so worried about the other half. Sometimes I can even hold the rigidity still and duck out, right? But when it comes to using the baseball choke, because I don't touch the collar, and because I'm operating with the gi across the back, and because it requires my body to move and not my arms to move, I can simply hold the hand still and complete the entire process. So let's switch one more time. Here I've taken the tucked gi out of the belt and then held it. And when I pull him close to me, I punch the gi into the open space under his arm. Now I try to lay the gi across the back, and then I immediately secure it in front of the shoulder with a palm down grip. I'd like as much tension as possible to be in the gi, so really use it up and under the armpit. Now the second hand should do the same thing, but palm up, and I want to get my hands close enough that they touch. This does not feel like a choke setup to him. It feels like perhaps an attempt to hold him down, right? So he may even bury the head. So now I'm going to bait him into a pass. The palm up hand is the hand that I need to slice across the neck. And to do that effectively, you need to make space. So I'll shrimp a little bit, and this leg here that's holding him still will drop to the ground, inviting him to walk in that direction over the low side. When he does, his body used to be over here, and now there's nothing but mat. And so I'm just gonna walk through that open space. And as I do, this is something else that Kenny taught me recently. Sometimes I wasn't quite getting the baseball bat choke from the bottom as effectively as I would have liked. And he said, your arms are too limp here. You actually need to straighten them so that you've got two baseball bats, right? What we want is the person to feel like they've got a baseball bat on either side of their neck. So I'm gonna stretch the arms a little bit and move into the opening. Right, now I'm gonna loosen up here before Pal goes out, but just by holding on, there's enough to choke. If I try to squeeze here, this is when he can start to weave in between the choke and put pressure on me. Maybe he even puts the knee on the belly, right? And now I've lost my position and I have to fight for the regrab. But if I just straighten the arms, but leave them relatively soft, and then I detach myself from trying to use all of the fancy guard techniques that I thought were gonna save me, and I simply just walk. My body does the choke. My body does the choke. All right, one final concept is this. Pal may be laying on his back, and Pal's like an advanced guard player. You know, like when we roll together, he often does a lot of sophisticated entanglements. So he'll play De La Hiva, he'll play X, he'll play Lasso, right? Now, if I'm holding onto Pal's pants very tightly, see, making a grip on the cloth, I'm attaching myself too much to him. When I hold his cloth on his pants, now he holds the cloth on my sleeves. And sometimes he can take one leg and holding it still, he can insert the foot in a lasso, right? And then my arm is really stuck. And you see, the more I hold on here, it actually already hurts my hand. It already hurts my wrist because I didn't let go. I'm holding on so tight, I stuck myself to him, right? As opposed to this. Why do I need to hold the guy so tight? I don't need to hold the guy at all. What is this doing? It's not doing anything. I need to get a sense of where his legs are, and then I need to beat the line of the feet, beat the line of the knees, and get to the hips and dominate them. That's all guard passing. So what does gripping the pants have to do with that? Nothing. However, I could touch him right here, right? And when he tries to touch my sleeve, I can just take it away, right? Now I go to the ankle or something like that. Then I go back. Now let's say that he does get my sleeve. Because I haven't attached to him, because I'm not blocking myself with this grip, watch how when he puts the lasso, now I just go. You see, he flips, I flip. He flips, I flip, right? He's gonna make a little leg circle, right? Or he can flip it out, right? That's the leg circle, that's the Brazilian legs technique. And I'm doing a pummel as well. I'm just pummeling right back under. If I hold on so tight that when he flips the lasso, I can't pummel, man, does his lasso get tight fast. And my arm is compromised, and the sweep series begins, the triangle series begins, the arm lock and wrist lock series begins, the omoplata series begins. I'm getting myself too deep because of too much attachment, too much connection. Here's an opportunity to be connected, but as soon as the lasso comes in, whoop, I roll to the outside. Oh, we won't have camera for that one. Right? As soon as the lasso comes in here, because I'm not touching, I can just flip my hand to the outside. That's all I'm doing. I'm swimming from here right to the other side of the leg, and then I'm touching again. And now look, when you're controlling the inside of the knee, that means just by taking a step, not by pushing, but by taking a lateral step, I can tilt his hips. And I can help myself by touching the outside of the other knee. So now I drag this leg, and I push this leg, and I tilt the hips, and I create a low leg, high leg situation. Or I can flip the hands, 1, 2, and walk the other way. It's my body moving his, instead of my arms versus his legs, right? So those are the concepts, okay? Consider this. We're not here, I'm not here anyway, to move through a series of techniques every week. You should not walk away from this little session here that we just gave you thinking, well, I learned the baseball bat choke, and I learned a takedown, and I learned a guard pass. No, you saw those things, and they are illustrative of, they are meant to illustrate a concept. And the concept is, you can grab, but you should really only do it when you're choking or moving the other person. You should never do it to create balance or keep yourself from going somewhere, because that's a compensation for a weakness. If you find yourself doing that, you need to improve your balance and improve your weight distribution. When you are choking, let your hands fill the gap and then let your body do the choke. The baseball bat is a perfect example for this. And when I'm looking to take the person down, remember that the more I hold on, the more they can match me, and the stronger they are, the likelihood of them winning increases. So we're going to use the grip just to change the position enough that I can get to an empty space. You saw in the opening takedown, I created an empty space, and I attacked the bottom empty half of the body while he stood up, thinking that the fight was still upstairs. When I did the baseball choke, I attacked the empty space that he left behind when he passed to the opposite side. And when we did the guard pass, I created a situation where, because I didn't hold on too tight, he couldn't effectively activate the lasso guard, and that allowed me to tip his hips off the horizon and then walk into the vacant space. Make sense? I know it does. Any questions? Okay, as usual, we have taught such an incredibly perfect class that everyone agrees silence means agreement, and silence means yes. So thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you soon. I look forward to getting together with you guys, and Pal, and Grayson, and Rita, and Charlene every Monday and Friday at noon. And don't forget to tune in to the Compound Facebook page and the CompoundSilverSpring.com regularly for schedule updates and exciting announcements as we move through our reopening phases. We're going to see you guys back on the mat very, very soon. Don't miss out.
Big announcements coming soon.